I don't know, whatever that title would be.
Yeah.
I run into this guy in Beverly Hills, and he goes, I have been wanting to meet you because I go to this conference every year.
It began with what was supposed to be a casual, unscripted moment, a conversation between friends during a podcast that, until now, rarely veered into scandal. Matthew McConaughey, known for his laid-back charm, philosophical musings, and career reinvention from rom-com heartthrob to Oscar-winning actor, found himself in a storm of attention after revealing something nobody expected. He named 5 actors he, in his words, hates. It wasn't said with malice, but there was weight in how he delivered the list, a visible edge behind the grin. The revelation was stunning, not just because McConaughey rarely lets his professional grievances slip into the public eye, but because the names were not obscure figures. They were prominent, respected, even beloved by many in the industry and among fans. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The moment shifted the energy in the room. Until that point, the conversation had been the usual blend of storytelling and introspection, the type McConaughey excelled at. But as soon as the names were spoken, a different tone emerged. He didn't elaborate much, didn't indulge in lengthy explanations or recount feuds. It wasn't theatrical. There were no wild accusations or stories of betrayal. It was almost worse than that. It was quiet, controlled honesty. He spoke with a calm that didn't require justification, and that's what made it hit harder. This wasn't a PR stunt or an impulsive tantrum. It was something he had thought about, carried with him, and decided at that moment to put into the air. The industry was rattled. Not because of the fact that actors can dislike one another, everyone knows tensions exist behind the camera, but because McConaughey is one of the few who built a brand on affability. He was the guy with the Texas drawl who made you think about life in metaphors. The same guy who could quote Emerson and wrestle a crocodile in the same breath. He was approachable in a way that made him seem immune to the petty politics of Hollywood. That image made the moment more impactful. If he had been someone with a history of tirades or online outbursts, this would have been another footnote in a long line of outbursts. But this was different. This was McConaughey, opening a tightly locked door. The 5 names he shared weren't just people he didn't get along with. They were individuals he had worked alongside, been in casting contention against, or shared press tours with. Each name carried its own legacy. One was an older, seasoned actor known for intensity and creative control. Another was a rising star with charisma and an unpredictable nature. There was a long-established A-lister with a reputation for being cold and calculated, a comedic powerhouse famous for dominating sets with their presence, and finally, a critically adored method actor infamous for taking roles to uncomfortable extremes. Together, the group formed an eclectic cluster of Hollywood archetypes. The powerhouse, the disruptor, the technician, the diva, and the perfectionist. It was, intentionally or not, a cross-section of personalities that McConaughey clearly had friction with. It was the act of naming them publicly that altered the dynamic. In the entertainment world, dislike and tension are normal, but naming names breaks an unspoken code. There is a reason most feuds stay whispered between agents and publicists. Reputation is currency, and feuds can ripple into lost roles, strained collaborations, and divided fans. McConaughey knew that. He's not naive. He knew that to speak these names aloud would not only change how people view those 5 actors, but how they view him. And yet, he did it anyway, not with rage, but with certainty. That certainty signaled something bigger. It hinted at a weariness, perhaps, of maintaining the diplomatic front so many actors are forced to uphold. There comes a point, especially for someone with McConaughey's career longevity, where diplomacy starts to wear thin. When you've played the game long enough, you begin to care less about smoothing every edge. You've earned the right, or so it feels, to speak candidly. And in that moment, it appeared he chose truth over optics. It wasn't messy, but it was bold. And in Hollywood, boldness, especially when it pierces the illusion, is both admired and feared. His decision to go public didn't seem to be about burning bridges as much as it was about owning experience. Each name carried a history that, while unspoken in detail, likely represented deeper stories of creative clash, incompatible ethics, or personal disillusionment. The choice not to explain was as pointed as the naming itself. It forced the public and the industry to sit with the ambiguity. Without context, the audience was left to fill in the blanks. Was it about betrayal, ego, professional sabotage? The mystery made it more magnetic, and that magnetism made it spread. The implications rippled quickly. Casting directors, producers, and media outlets began to dissect past collaborations. Old interviews were rewatched, red carpet interactions were scrutinized for tension, past rumors that had floated in the entertainment ether suddenly found new relevance. Every awkward body language cue, every clipped sentence in a press junket, every time McConaughey looked vaguely disengaged in a co-star's praise, it all came under renewed analysis. The machine of Hollywood's gossip apparatus roared to life. The impact wasn't limited to those 5 names. McConaughey's statement disrupted a deeper illusion: the myth of universal camaraderie in entertainment. For a long time, the public had been sold a vision of the industry as a place where stars uplift each other, collaborate harmoniously, and toast champagne at wrap parties. But the reality is more fractured. Personalities clash, creative visions collide, egos battle for space on set. The actor's world is an intricate dance of collaboration and competition. For someone as established as McConaughey to pierce that veneer, it invited others to consider how much discontent bubbles beneath the surface of polished award speeches and press smiles. The timing of his revelation added another layer of complexity. McConaughey's career has been in a different phase over the past decade. Following his McConaissance, he moved from leading man to something more nuanced. Part performer, part philosopher, part cultural commentator. He wrote a best-selling memoir, entertained the idea of political office, and embraced a life beyond studio walls. He had already begun to craft an identity that didn't rely solely on pleasing Hollywood. That gave him a freedom not every actor has. It gave him room to tell truths others couldn't afford to. There was also something almost existential in the way he approached the moment. Not in a grand, melodramatic sense, but in the way it felt like part of a broader reflection on authenticity. McConaughey has always been a man interested in peeling back layers, in searching for something real beneath the performance of everyday life. Perhaps this was his way of doing that within his own industry. Maybe he saw honesty, not just about life, but about work, about people, as a kind of liberation. If he couldn't be honest about who he didn't like at this stage in his career, when would he ever be? It's also worth noting the balance he struck. He didn't launch a campaign against these actors. There were no follow-up attacks, no scathing critiques of their craft. It was simply a naming. But naming carries weight. In an industry where perception is everything, to be labeled disliked by a peer, especially one with McConaughey's cultural cachet, can shift how others approach future collaborations. Directors may think twice, studios may feel pressure, and fans may reevaluate their attachments. It doesn't destroy careers, but it plants a seed of doubt. And in Hollywood, even small seeds can grow into defining narratives. His words also highlighted the broader challenge of persona management in the entertainment world. Actors are expected to maintain an image, often disconnected from reality. To break that image even slightly is to risk scrutiny. For McConaughey, the risk appeared calculated, perhaps even therapeutic. It may have been his way of reclaiming ownership over experiences that were, until now, glossed over in press-friendly language. The industry trains you to say, "We had a great time on set," even when that couldn't be further from the truth. Maybe McConaughey just decided he didn't want to lie anymore. The audience response was electric. Social media erupted into theories, debates, and side-taking. Some praised his honesty, calling it refreshing in a world obsessed with image. Others questioned the wisdom of naming names without context, arguing that it could be perceived as unfair to those he accused. There were heated conversations about what hate really meant in his context. Was it deep personal disdain, or was it professional incompatibility exaggerated for effect? Without elaboration, the audience was left to assign meaning, and that made the moment endlessly dissectable. What lingered after the clip ended wasn't outrage or scandal in the traditional sense. It was something quieter, more introspective. It forced fans and peers alike to think about the nature of authenticity in public life. Can you still be seen as grounded and generous if you admit that you harbor dislike? Does truth-telling have a place in an industry built on performance? McConaughey didn't answer these questions outright, but he invited the world to sit with them. The industry's power dynamics played into the fallout as well. Some of the actors he named were more powerful than others. Some had more influence, more clout, more to lose or gain by being implicated. and that made the revelation uneven, asymmetric in its consequences. But perhaps that too was part of the message. Power doesn't insulate you from being disliked. Prestige doesn't guarantee respect from peers. In that moment, McConaughey leveled the field, not in a destructive way, but in a humanizing one. He reminded everyone that behind the brands and blockbuster credits are human beings with opinions, frustrations, and boundaries. In a profession where silence is often synonymous with professionalism, McConaughey's choice to speak stood out. He didn't just disrupt the PR machine, he offered a glimpse into a version of Hollywood where honesty isn't just whispered behind closed doors. Whether or not that version ever fully arrives, he momentarily brought it to life, and in doing so, altered how we perceive him and those around him forever. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us. What are your thoughts on Matthew hating 5 actors? Who do you expect? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.